I I was trying to use my headphones, and my headphones didn't want to cooperate.
Look, I would use my headphones, but I don't know. I have to get this feed and stuff worked out on StreamYard. So, how you been doing? First of all,
Oh, trying to maintain my mental health and my sanity.
hey, look, the way things been now, I think the whole United States, basically the whole world's trying to do that.
It's like I want my beanbag pillow of sorts and just hug it and just read and try to forget the outside world for a little bit.
Right, I understand. I understand that totally. I certainly understand that. So our topic for tonight, and I've been kind of elaborating on it throughout, I think, part of last year and on this year about how these crooked politicians and these crooked ministers who have this audacity to use God's word or use God to bring forth or justify their evil agenda, sinister agenda. Right now, I'm going to play something and we're going to talk about this. One of the clips we're going to play, and I want you to look at this clip because it's you got to be the judge of it, and so do the
Oh,
viewers out there. So let's play this clip.
What we're seeing is we're seeing an awakening in this country and a returning to godly principles, godly morality. We've we have no more tolerance. Tolerance is not a virtue in the Bible at all. Tolerance means to simply turn a blind eye to the convictions you once held, and that is going to be gone. We're not going to be tolerant of sin. We're not going to be tolerant of the woke agenda, of the radical left. And Donald Trump will be the 47th president of the United States. That's very clear.
If he were to lose again, what would that mean for the country?
He will not lose.
What does a woke agenda mean to you?
Our country has taken a radical shift towards the acceptance of really child mutilation. What's going on with the transgender thing? I mean, even in our school that we have in our town, there are two girls that identify as horses, and our principal and the teachers, they just turned a blind eye and accept it. And so you have to accept them.
What town is that? Where is that school?
That's in Iowa City. Yeah, so it's terrible what's happening in this country. Evangelicals feel this should be a Christian nation, and that's why we have evangelists and pastors and teachers and healers like myself. I'm a missionary and an evangelist. Okay, I pastor a ministry called Alpha Numa Ministries, and we're doing everything we can to see that America turns back to God, that America has another great awakening like it did in ancient times past, and that this nation becomes a Christian nation again. We want Christian elected officials. We don't believe in the separation of church and state to such a radical degree that we become a Marxist state. Okay, this is separation of church and state was never supposed to be confused with what we see now. Many of these people in the Democrat side are more Marxist than anything else. The doctrine of Karl Marx, right, in his Communist Manifesto, is the abolition of Christian morals, values.
Okay, enough of that crap. Um,
I honestly had to just sit there and just do the Samuel L. Jackson stare at
right.
what I was hearing, because what planet is this? And what news did you listen to put that all together like it made any type of sense? Return to Christian values. Where? When?
Exactly.
When you can, okay, doesn't matter what web browser you use. Just ask the question on the internet. Since it's an ocean of information that's free to the public,
Hmm.
ask the ocean of information, is America a Christian country? Better yet, let me make it even better question. Ask, what is the official religion of the United States of America? Ask that question. Once you ask that question, then you will see, how can you return to something that was never there? Matter of fact, those who actually took the time to pay attention in their history class, in, believe it or not, public school, if just the 1700s and the 13 colonies, the people who put the Declaration of Independence together, how many of them were actually Christian? Did they profess that they were Christian? How many of them actually said from their mouth that they were Christian? I will help you. Go to the Library of Congress. It's online and free to the public. Ask that question to the Library of Congress. How many of the founding fathers identified as Christians?
Mm-hmm.
This is free information. Free and accept. There is no conspiracy. It's free. It's open to the public. Just ask the right questions in the right space. People are asking the wrong questions to the wrong people. And that's why there's so much confusion.
Mm-hmm.
What is
Right.
woke? They're lying about what woke is. It started somewhere else. It has nothing to do with Marxism. Separation of church and state, I suggest keeping that, because does anybody remember the Salem witch trials? That was a
Mm-hmm.
theocracy. And
Yes.
anybody who knows what the word theocracy means, it's a government run by a central religion. Salem was run by a theocracy.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw what happened historically. America should never be a theocracy for that reason. People
Exactly.
hallucinating, saying, oh my gosh, this person did something magical that we cannot explain. They must be a witch and stole their land. That's historically documented in the Library of Congress. I don't have to make this up. It's free information.
That's right. I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I asked this, and it's crazy because when I think about this whole ordeal about these right wing, I'm talking about both black and white because we got some black folks a part of the right wing too, who always say that we need to turn America back to God and we need to make it a Christian nationalist country and all this. And I'm thinking to myself, first of all, when was America ever Christian? Another thing
I
is
can't
this,
I can't find it.
right? One of the founding fathers, I believe, stated that it was good to have a separation of church and state because it will be hard for government officials to govern the country.
It really would. There are certain things you cannot do according to your religion, and that will put a hindrance on progress.
Exactly. And when I think about this, because okay, just today I found out on it was on Yahoo News. It was all over the news site where this new administration, they're getting ready to bring forth. Well, I think they have already signed the executive order to start a faith-based Christian type department with all these initiatives and stuff. And I got to thinking, they did this back in 2001 when former President George W. Bush was the commander in chief. They had faith-based initiatives then.
That's
And
true.
and lo and behold, when I've seen it this time, guess who they are putting as the head honcho of that department?
Oh, I don't want to speculate. I'm nervous. Go
Pastor
ahead and tell
Paula
me.
White.
Who?
Paula White.
Why? Why?
Good question,
I
because
remember Miss Paula and them African angels. Okay, go ahead.
Paula White, if you remember that too, what you just said, Paula White cheated on her first husband. Then she remarried and got involved. Well, she left the second husband and got involved with, I believe, was the lead singer from the group Journey.
Journey.
Yes,
Journey.
yes, Journey.
Don't stop believing.
Yes.
I'm in disbelief, but go ahead.
But then after that, it was talked that she embezzled funds from the account that the group Journey had. Not only that, her husband left the group, started following her around in her ministry. But here's the kicker of the whole deal. She pastored 2 churches in Southern Florida, I believe. One of those churches was of the late Pastor Zachary Timms,
Oh,
which it was also stated that somehow she took that church from Zachary Timms' wife.
what?
And after all of that, the ministry fell through, both of them.
There was too much dirt behind all this to take on 2 churches. You're going
Exactly.
to be under a great deal of scrutiny to take over 1 church, let alone 2.
Mm-hmm.
This is the age of the internet. It's very hard to hide things now.
It
And
is.
it's so easy to pull up information that it just makes sense that both churches fell through because it's just too much out there about her. Just that, you are a public figure, whether you like it or not, when you go on camera and everything about your life is just public. So
Exactly.
you just open yourself up to scrutiny like that. So, and a lot of people are not going to like it,
Mm-hmm.
because everybody's a fact checker now.
Mm-hmm. But Facebook has gotten rid of that, which, yeah, Facebook decided they wanted to get rid of fact checkers. Um,
Oh, I'm my speculation is their fear of censorship and violating the First Amendment.
yeah,
Well, as far as I'm believing sticky notes, just simply saying yes, this is false information, but just still leave it up there. That would have been better
right.
instead of just completely blocking them. That would be the best way. I don't believe everyone should be a lawyer, but I do believe everyone should read the law. At least
Exactly.
read it once. There's a theory that most American citizens who've always been American citizens never read their own constitution. And so
Mm-hmm.
you have a great mass of American citizens who say, I know my rights, but all they're really doing is quoting a line from a movie because
That's
they
it.
really don't.
That's
They
it.
don't. The Constitution has always been there. Well, not always, but it's been there since 1776.
Right.
But you can read it. It's free and open to the public, and you can see for yourself what it actually says. And so for people to say they know their rights without ever reading it is mind-boggling to me. And then they are surprised when they get caught up and go to jail, and they're like, that's not illegal. Yes, it is. You could have just, again, internet is an ocean of information. I got curious and I just wanted to try something. What laws were recently passed in the state of Louisiana? That's all I typed on the internet just to see how accessible it is to look up bills, actual bills with the code on the side for your state. And I just look and I was like, ooh wee, that is a lot of laws passed that nobody knew about, that nobody paid attention to, that nobody went to the legislature office about, that nobody pulled up and just checked on. And then when things get passed, you find out on the news, in the mass media, and they say, no, we don't want that law. You could have learned about it a year ago before it was actually finalized.
Exactly.
A lot of your state spending, you could have found out about that with a simple internet search.
Exactly.
You because your state, okay, for example, this is just an example. California fires. They had to pass laws to allow funding for certain aspects to even of fire rescue.
Right.
And by not passing bills on certain funding, it caused problems.
Right.
But the citizens would have known that had they just done like I did. What laws were recently passed in my state? And you would have saw, okay, there was a funding bill that for some reason they're just kind of waffling around. Why are they waffling this around? What does this bill contain that is so important that they're not paying attention to? This is for the public to see. There is no conspiracy. It's free and open to the public. You could have just asked.
Mm-hmm.
So not passing the bill on the funding contributed to the fires in California.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That is true. And it is sad to say that with what's going on now with all of uh, these executive orders that he worked on the night after, well, the same night after that sideshow parade, which I still don't understand why Mississippi Valley Marching Band decided to go ahead and march in that parade. But I understand their band director is a Trump supporter too, but that's for another show.
You got to
Um,
go where the band go. Sorry.
yeah, true, true. But yeah, it's a lot that you know, I was talking about I was discussing with my wife a while back, in our home state of Mississippi. You know, they claim so much that, you know, they're a Bible Belt state. Arkansas, where I live now, they're claiming themselves a Bible Belt state too. And I'm thinking to myself, my gosh, how can y'all be Bible Belt, but y'all still full of hell?
It's
You
it's about literacy and psychology.
preach,
If you
girl.
look at the education of Arkansas and Mississippi, you see there's a mass literacy problem. Again, that's also public information. There are several schools in the state of Mississippi that were taken over by the federal government because
Mm-hmm.
the scores were so low that they had to investigate. So Department of Education is doing its job as an agency, because why are your reading scores so low? Yes, it's fine to be a Bible Belt state. That's fine, but what good is having a Bible if you can't understand what you're reading?
Exactly. The state superintendent in Oklahoma, uh, that's been on the news that he wants to have, Bible education placed in all public schools throughout the state. Mm, I would say yes to that, but there's kind of a problem with that because number one, who's to say that all of those teachers or whoever they hire comes in to teach these classes How do we not know that they are, how should I put, they're like a Bible historian. They know the Bible. They know how to, quote the scriptures, interpret the scriptures and all of that.
You
And
don't.
and I was saying no, 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 no one in a school is going to teach my child the Bible, because what will probably happen is that this person will say, let's say, for instance, the scripture, John 3:16, that's a very familiar scripture in the Bible. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, blah, 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 blah.
Right. Right.
Who's not to say that this person comes in and tells the kids, well, John 3:16 don't mean that. It means blah, 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 blah. And then they actually believe that and they go home and tell their parents.
Ooh, there's well, based on the way things currently are, that's a potential lawsuit, because everybody, okay, again, the official religion of the United States, you can look that up. There are laws against discrimination. There are laws against discrimination against using religion. Due to the fact that there's laws against discrimination, pushing even the Bible in the school system is, again, I disagree with, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because everybody does not believe the Bible, and they have their own reasons why they don't believe the Bible. And it's like pushing your personal belief on somebody else, which is something that nobody really wants, which is another reason why people like America. You can do pretty much whatever as long as it doesn't violate United States law. There are a lot of laws against a lot of things that people don't know is a law. And the only reason these laws are getting longer and longer on the United States books is because somebody did something that required it to be a law.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a law before, but it became a law because somebody did something so egregious that it needed to be a law.
Right.
Again, Salem witch trials and the theocracy.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why we're not a theocracy. Putting the Bible in the school, it's like leaning towards the theocracy again. It's like the thing we learned about history is we never really learned from history.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's so sad about the whole thing. And so we're seeing the same issue repeat itself because nobody stopped to see the pattern. We're repeating ourselves and don't even realize it.
Right.
I'm
That's
going to
right.
say it again. Hopefully people remember this. Theocracy, Salem witch trials, Library of Congress. It's public information. No, you do not want to put the Bible or any other religious text in a school. You do not want to do that.
Mm-hmm. That's right. I want to show you this clip here, and you're probably going to be like, "Woosah!" after you read this or see this. Here's this next clip I want to show y'all.
Inside Washington's Museum of the Bible, a single volume that is like no other. The so-called Slave Bible, remarkable not for what's in it, but for what's not.
So about 90% of the Old Testament's been removed and about 50% of the New Testament's been removed. To put it another way, a normal King James Version has 1,189 chapters in it. The Slave Bible has only 232.
Missing are chapters and verses that might have encouraged uprisings. Book of Exodus, redacted. No story of Moses demanding Pharaoh, "Let my people go." Gone is Galatians, and the verse, "There is neither bond nor free, for ye are all one in Christ Jesus." And no Jeremiah, "Woe unto him that useth his neighbor's service without wages."
What they've left in are verses such as Ephesians 6:5, which is the famous verse, "Slaves, be obedient to your master."
Looking at this Bible, it's hard to tell that anything's been taken out of it.
That's correct. I mean, it looks like a normal book. For many enslaved Africans, this would have been the first time they were exposed to the Bible.
A Bible selectively edited to instill obedience, using religion to underpin the horror of slavery.
When people encounter this exhibit, what lasting impression do you want them to leave with?
But we want to pass the message on that may this never happen again. The Bible itself is a whole book. It's not one that you get to carve up and use this piece or that piece.
The slave Bible designed to repress rebellion, but it didn't work. Enslaved people in the Caribbean constantly fought against slavery until emancipation.
I think it's very relevant to understand our history, not just American history, but our African American history, our roots and how we got to this point.
A dark chapter in the history of the good book. Jeff Bennett, NBC News, Washington.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down.
I guess I didn't read that part in Revelations where it talks about being cursed for changing things around. But they, folks don't believe in the mummy's curse or any other curse. They think it's just superstition.
That shocked me when I saw that clip. This was from NBC News, and I've asked this question myself, even when I'm driving down the road, when I have like time to myself. I kind of question myself on a lot of things that I do understand, but I don't understand. What is it about the full text of the Bible that these slave owners were so afraid of?
Well, in the clip itself, in the video itself, it talks about, actually they showed the two verses. You're not supposed to use your neighbor's strength. Can't use their labor without wages. That's one Bible verse that they didn't want there.
Right.
And that's in the clip. And Moses, let my people go. That's in the clip. The verses are right there in the video. These would stir up uprisings because that's what made the Bible so great. It was never really about slavery. There was a whole lot of morality. There was and still is a lot of morality in the Bible, but people are being very selective, just like in the video. It's made it very clear they're very selective in what they wanted there. So all the moral parts, all the good parts, all the parts, like, again, referring to the two verses shown in the clip, those are very moral scriptures that are good. You don't, a person does work for you, you simply pay them. You're supposed to. That's a good thing. Exactly. And depending on which Bible you have, there are even more verses that double down on doing just that. And again, people are just being selective. And I want to say it has to do with, it's a form of psychology, because you have to brainwash generations upon generations of people to think the opposite of what is clearly written. And that's where you get the term cognitive dissonance. It's a psychological term. You can look it up. It's not something that's spooky over the head. No, you have to teach a person, almost like the Pavlov dog experiment, to believe something completely ludicrous.
Right.
You have to teach them to do this. It's like saying, I don't know, I have to find a simple example that's not, let me see. Well, I guess we could just go back to Pavlov. Pavlov, he would ring a bell, and every time he would ring the bell, the dog would start to drool, because the dog was trained to do so. Every time the food was presented, the bell was rung. Food presented, bell rung, dog begins to drool, salivate, and he would continue to do that for so long, to the point where he didn't need the food anymore. He just rang the bell and the dog would naturally starts to do that because it was taught to do that. Now, same thing was done in the case of the Bible.
Mhm.
They will lie about what's in the book and beat you if you say it doesn't make sense.
Mhm.
You will say something, you will read something very clear, again, referring to the clip. Woe to them that uses their neighbor's labor without wages. And you will say, well, where is my wages after I've done this work for you? And it said the Bible doesn't say to give you wages. And they will be true if their Bible literally did not say that, but they already know that when they work, they get wages, whoever they are, doesn't matter who, you're supposed to pay them. Because there's another scripture in the Old Testament that tells you you're supposed to treat your servant like yourself. You're supposed to. But people don't, they don't read that part, or they're not even curious as to why certain parts are just missing. So
Right.
if you ask a question that makes sense, Pavlov theory kicks in, and the first thing to do is say, I rebuke you for asking
Mhm.
a question that makes sense.
Right.
Like in this dimension, in this reality, it doesn't make sense. And I'm asking a fair question, and you're saying, I rebuke you, demon, because you don't know the answer. And just instead of being honest and saying, I don't know,
Right.
or let me study on it. At the very least, say, well, let me study on it, and I'll come back to you, and actually come back. Because there's so many that say, I'll do it, and they don't. And that breaks trust, which adds fuel to the fire to make people not trust clergy. If you don't know, just please be honest and say, I don't know, because that's the
Right.
first step of learning. I
And
am the
I'm
first to
saying,
admit I don't know. That's why I ask
right.
1,000 questions.
Right. I'm the same way. You know, I have people ask me about, well, what you think about this? I don't know. I don't know. It's not that I'm being rude or smart. It's just that I don't know. Because I don't want to tell anybody the wrong thing. And then, they'll say, well, you said this. Well, that I said it, but honestly, I just didn't know. So, but yeah, I like it's a lot, when it comes down to like, the books of the Bible and this and that. Um, because right now, as we were saying, a lot of these politicians and a lot of these ministers are using the Bible, to justify the evil things that they have done in the church, uh, or in the community, or with politicians in the community, or some of them just use the Bible to say, "Hey, I'm a Christian and I'm this and that. I have the power from God to do whatever I want to do," but it doesn't work that way.
No, God is a God of order. Do we agree?
You agree?
Okay, so why would a person be out of order according to scripture and yet still think they have the power to heal?
Hmm.
Like
You know,
you, yeah, when it comes to being a leader, the first thing a leader has to do is use their own standard on themselves.
mhm,
Whatever standard they use on others, let them use it on themselves first to see if it's even possible to live by that.
right.
Because we have our own internal rules. We have our own understanding of what is and is not respectful. And we have to examine what that is for us as individuals and then see, is it possible to even live by that? And be honest. If you're not honest with yourself, it's easy to lie to everybody else. Please don't lie to yourself. The standard
Right.
that is being used on others, that one is using on others, can you live by that yourself? Honestly. If the
Mhm.
answer is no, stop. Just stop. I
I
mean,
feel
because if one continues, with something so clearly ludicrous, even to themselves. They can't cry on Judgment Day. You have
Exactly.
time and opportunity, and instead of using the Bible as a mirror, they use it as a ruler, and they themselves didn't measure up. And what makes it even worse is when a person uses what's called an abridged or bulverized Bible, which says only what they want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Any Bible after a certain historical period was put together by a specific committee because they need to abridge it to be acceptable to a certain demographic, which is why you have so many versions of the Bible. Yes, there is a slave Bible. That slave Bible is the beginning of an abridged version of the Bible. And
Mm-hmm.
from that point forward, it got more and more tangled up because it said things that people did not want to hear. So they
Right.
would abridge it, and they would abridge it more. And of course, there was always a committee. Famous Bible that people like to nitpick on is the New International Version because of the committee behind who put the New International Version together.
Right.
Now, the same scrutiny people went through on the New International Version should also be applied to the Gideon Bible. It should also be applied to the Mormon Bible. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what committee put these books together and said that that was canon? Who
Hmm.
put those books together and analyze those people? Because that's where you get all these easy to read version, American Standard Version of the Bible. Who is behind these committees putting these various versions of the Bible together? Which goes back to what was mentioned earlier about the Bible being in the school system. If you have 50,000 different versions of one book, which one is going to be in that school and why? What are you leaving out by your very selective version of the Bible? I'm gonna be honest. I I specifically use the 1611 King James Version Bible with the Apocrypha on purpose
Mm-hmm.
because I did a historical comparison, not a linguistic comparison, because language is relative.
Mm-hmm.
Language is, if you are a polyglot, not a polygon, because I know people like to make jokes. A polyglot is a person that knows multiple languages. Now, a person in Mississippi would simply say, "Oh, I'm multilingual." Yes, that's what it means, multilingual. A person who is a polyglot will not nitpick about linguistics when it comes to translating the Bible because they can read multiple languages.
Right.
What I'm getting at is the historical problem. You have clear evidence in the Smithsonian, the Library of Congress, a number of other natural museums around the world that can vouch for the historical plausibility of the 1611 Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And yet people nitpick and they're being intellectually dishonest and they're using personal bias. They're using a whole lot of fallacies to say that it doesn't mean what it says, even though the physical evidence is looking right at them.
Right.
If it is so much as 85% historically accurate based upon tangible evidence, why not believe that? That's my reason for believing the 1611, a basic historical comparison. And I went to public school. I admit it. I went to public school and I looked at my history book and I looked at my Bible and say, gee, that's interesting. Why do they both say the same thing?
Mm-hmm.
And nobody in church picked up on it.
And you
I
know,
thought that was kind of weird, but okay.
and now you know what? Speaking of the 1611 Bible, I'm gonna have to get my copy. I have to own me a copy of that. Um, so by you saying that, I got to go online and see if I can find one through Amazon. Um,
I
but
tell
yeah,
you now, you could probably find it for $20 on some place like eBay.
Well, you know what? Let me jot that down. eBay.
I
I'm always.
what gets me is I kid you, okay. I have social media, and on a different platform, I saw someone complaining about the price of books of different historical texts that help you understand historical context of the Bible. And they talked about how crazy the prices was. And somebody said they were looking for a 1611 Bible, and man, they had crazy prices. So I jumped on that person's post and I asked the question, "Where are you searching for your 1611? I got it for $20 on eBay, free shipping." By the way, it's also a Bible app on Google Play. It's free. The 1611
Thank you
King
for telling
James
me.
Version with the Apocrypha. It is free on Google Play as a download.
Thank you for telling me that. Thank you for telling me that. Write that down. But yeah, but everything you said, you hit it right on the nail. You are hitting it right on the nail. A thought came to my mind, and this kind of coincides with this next clip I'm gonna play. So we've been hearing this deal, about certain political parties being the party of God, party of
Really?
Christ. Yes. Um, Basically, it is the right wing, the Republican Party, the GOP, Grand Old Party. Right now, I'm not going to say that, but they're claiming themselves to be the party of God, and the Democrats are the party of the devil. You know what? I tell you what, here's a better look at what I'm telling you. Check this clip out.
You can't even buy baby formula on Amazon. Check me. You can check me while I'm preaching. Try to buy some Infamil, see if you can. But there's truckloads of it down on the border. All right, we might as well just start preaching for a minute, all right? There's truckloads of it down on the border. You see, here's what the left does. If they can't kill your baby in the womb, they'll starve them to death later on after they've been born. Now, I'm going to say something right now going to make about maybe 10 of you mad. But I don't care if it makes all of you mad. We'll start over next week. You know, the Bible talks about church discipline, right? About kicking folks out that cause trouble. I'm almost going to say I'm about to the place. I am to the place. I'm to the place right now. If you vote Democrat, I don't even want you around this church. You can get out. You can get out, you demon. You can get out, you baby butchering election thief. You cannot be a Christian and vote Democrat in this nation. I don't care how mad that makes you. You get pissed off as you want to. You cannot be a Christian and vote Democrat in this nation. They are God-denying demons that butcher babies and hate this nation. They hate this nation. Get mad all you want to. I don't care if you stand. I don't care if you throw tomatoes, praise God. I'm about to throw a microphone up in his house. CNN can eat my dirty socks. You cannot be a Democrat and a...
All right, enough of that fool.
I just got two questions. I got two questions. Okay, question number one. Where's his Bible? He's
Exactly.
preaching, but there's no Bible.
Exactly.
Question number two. What Bible verse with precepts say all that he just said? He's supposed to be preaching. Why is he bringing up politics? I don't recall the word Democrat or Republic. I don't recall the word Democrat or Republic showing up in any version of the Bible, and I've read several versions of the Bible from cover to cover. I don't see that anywhere. That's weird. Does he need to lay on the couch? Does he need a therapist? Something weird just happened there.
Here's
and they're
here's the thing.
clapping for it.
Here's the thing. 40 years ago, 40 years ago, this was around about the time Reagan was president. And then they were trying to bring upon the Christian national movement then.
Oh, okay.
So this is what happened. This is what happened. The Republican Party, I can't remember how it went, whether it was the Republican Party or the evangelicals. No, it was the evangelicals. They wanted to team up with the Republican Party to bring forth what they're trying to bring forth now, this Christian nationalism. Really? So this is what they've done. They said, okay, we are going to get all of our Christian brothers and sisters, black and white, to join in with us. But this is how we're going to do it. We are only going to focus on 2 sins of the Bible: abortion and same-sex relationships. We're going to focus on those 2. Yes. But not knowing there's another agenda behind all of this.
Okay.
So what we're seeing now, what's going on is in this administration now, because the Heritage Foundation, everybody knows Trump's Agenda 47 is Project 2025 that comes from the think tank, the Heritage Foundation. They wrote all of those. Right. They wrote all of that. This was going to be passed 40 years ago, but they couldn't do it because I think somewhere along another, I believe Democrats, I can't remember if they won the House or the Senate. So once they won that area in Congress, none of it was going to be passed. Let's fast forward to 2016 when Donald Trump became president first time. During that time, it was called Project 2016.
Really? Same agenda, just change the date.
Right. So they almost passed some of that legislation then. Not all of it, some of it. And now we fast forward to 2025. And now Congress, the entire government is all 3 branches of government, executive, judicial, and legislative, all are ran by Republicans. However, in the legislative, remember, the Republicans have a slim majority, not much any of this stuff that they want to pass, because most of this stuff you have to have 2/3 vote. I mean, you have to have like 190 out of 435, and I think it's like the Senate, you got to have like 67 out of what? Do I have that right? 67?
Look, convincing just 5 people is trial enough. It's tedious enough. So, hey, it's amazing that much was even passed, considering how much you have to read before you pass it. And that's the sneaky thing about these bills. They make them thick so you kind of fall asleep halfway through and not notice that extra little sneaky bit they threw in there. So you passed the whole bill not knowing that little bitty sneaky loophole was in there. That's why they make them so thick.
Right.
It could have been short and simple and addressed the issue, but instead it's very long-winded on purpose to hide.
Right. Right. And don't get me wrong, this is not just on the Republican side. You got some Democrats that believe the same thing.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
That's why you think about it. When Obama ran in 2008, did you see how the Clintons were talking about him on the campaign trail?
Honestly, I tried to stay out of it as much as possible, but I did hear a little bit, and I was like, y'all shouldn't throw stones when you live in glass houses. Please don't. Like, hush, please, Clintons, don't say anything, please.
Exactly.
Y'all were in the office first, remember? So you are under a great deal of scrutiny. Your record is for the public to see. He's the new guy. There are people who are simply going to come at, okay, Benghazi. That's all I have to say. Benghazi. So please don't talk about Obama, Mr. and Mrs. Clinton. Please don't. Benghazi, remember?
Yep.
Oh, okay. So
it's crazy. And I tell people, you cannot bottom line, neither party or no political party is of God.
I agree.
None whatsoever. Because if they were of God, they will be doing the stuff that they were supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be doing right by people, period.
I agree.
And when they was talking about the funding and stuff, and I'm not gonna lie, because I still work in the school system. And when they was talking about cutting funding from the Department of Education, and just really dismantling the Department of Education, I was looking around the classroom. I'm like, dang, what these babies gonna do? I mean,
right.
Half of them, not half of them, but a percentage of them may live in poverty to the point where they only get a meal when they get to school.
Right. And so, people keep forgetting that.
How are they going to eat? How are these young kids, black, white, whoever, who are smart, how are they going to get into college? Even if they got the grades, because scholarships help a little bit, but not as much.
Very true. Most of them are around $200 to $300.
Right, because you and I marched in the ECCC band. What was it then? $700 a semester?
Yes, it was.
$700 a semester. I think that only went up like what, $100, I believe.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. It's probably due to something from the alumni, because I know the alumni at the school have meetings from time to time. It's probably something that they put together, because let's face it, school education is becoming more and more expensive, and cutting funding to education when you need education is never a good idea. I still remember that letter from, at the time, Governor Haley Barbour. We actually asked the question while we were still students, why don't we have more funding for our school? And somebody literally sent a letter to the governor at that time, and they printed the letter and posted it in the band hall, like in the hallway of the music department, for all
What
to
year
see.
was this?
I want to say 2011.
Okay, I wasn't there then.
It was either 2010, 2011, but it was very mind blowing what the governor said. The money went to defense. It did not go to education because it went to defense. And we as students stood there and asked, defense of what? It's hard to defend yourself when you don't have the education necessary to know what you're defending yourself from. Defend yourself from what? If there was something going on, I don't know. That I thought that was kind of weird. If if you knew how to communicate better, it's harder to have a fight with somebody. I
Well,
mean,
y'all know me. I think if I saw that letter, y'all know how I was. Some choice words would have came out of my mouth.
absolutely. But we were just so bewildered and upset that we just said, forget about it. I'm just going to leave and go do something else. And some people did. So you thought more guns were more important than more books. We're asking for better books. And instead you chose to buy more guns. Priorities, people, priorities. And here's what I find so funny. You have a whole lot of people who don't do well in education who join the military and use those very guns. I wonder how smart that's going to be.
True.
Yeah, I like diplomacy personally because it's less messy and it's less costly. Diplomacy, if we can communicate and agree, build on something that we agree with, then we can actually make progress. But we must find that common ground first, actual common ground, and then move forward from there. Children do it all the time. We learn this from watching children in kindergarten. They don't know to be angry or hateful toward each other until they get older. They learn this later. Out the gate, they're not like that. Children are not like that.
Right.
All your basic social skills you learned in kindergarten. How to share, how to say please and thank you, hold the door open for people, be polite, be respectful. You learn that in kindergarten. So my question is, why is it when we become adults, we forget everything we learned in kindergarten?
That's true. That is true. I mean, look, hey, Evening Talk family, I told y'all, we are laying the gauntlet down tonight on a lot of this BS that people has been human around and stuff. But I agree with you. I always say that you wasn't born a racist. You were taught. You have to be taught to be a racist. You have to be taught things. And
Absolutely.
I tell you,
I mean,
it's amazing. It is really amazing that we have that today. We still have racism today still going on. Will we overcome it? I don't know. Will it happen? I mean,
I'm, I want to add on to what you said before. People think you're just saying that you're not born a racist. Let me double down a little further. If anybody who knows anything about child care development, yes, there is a class, a nursing class, child care development, where it teaches you the milestones a child is supposed to have accomplish at a certain age. And nowhere in those milestones does it say racist. That's just natural development of a child, no matter what race there are. Every child is supposed to meet a certain milestone once they hit a certain age, regardless of religion, regardless of what they look like. There are certain things they're supposed to be able to, do at a certain age.
right.
If a child comes into the world and you have to teach them how to talk, how to walk, how to not put dangerous things in their mouth, Why would you naturally think they'd have common sense if you have to teach them these basics?
Right.
Racism has to be taught, just like talking has to be taught, just like everything else has to be taught. You have to teach this.
Right.
It's just child care development basics, regardless of how anybody feel or what their religion or politics are. That's just natural development.
Right.
You have to teach children everything, literally everything. They don't know. They just got here. They don't know. They're not like horses where they just come out the womb and they're just running. And even a horse, when a baby horse is born, they still need a couple of hours before they got their legs together. We're not like horses. We have to be taught things. This is not
Exactly.
instinct.
Exactly. You know what? With what we're talking about, I'm going to play this last clip for tonight, and we're going to kind of like elaborate on it a little bit. But this is from this was a Senate, well, really it was a congressional hearing. Well, she's not a senator, she's a Congress lady. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She
Okay.
made this bold statement, and when I tell you, she lit that room up, sis. She lit that room up. Now I'm going to show it, but it's not going to be in full screen. But take a look at this.
The only time religious freedom is invoked is in the name of bigotry and discrimination. I'm tired of it. And experiencing this hearing, and I'm struggling whether I respond or launch into this question as a legislator or from the perspective of a woman of faith, because I cannot, it's very difficult to sit here and listen to arguments in the long history of this country of using scripture and weaponizing and abusing scripture to justify bigotry. White supremacists have done it. Those who justified slavery did it. Those who fought against integration did it. And we're seeing it today. And sometimes, especially in this body, I feel as though if Christ himself walked through these doors and said what he said thousands of years ago, that we should love our neighbor and our enemy, that we should welcome the stranger, fight for the least of us, that it is easier for a rich man, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into a kingdom of heaven, he would be maligned as a radical and rejected from these doors. And I know, and it is part of my faith, that all people are holy and all people are sacred unconditionally. And that is what makes faith sometimes, that's what prompts us to transform, because it is unconditional. It's not about that it is up to us to love parts of people. We love all people. There is nothing holy about rejecting medical care of people, no matter who they are on the grounds of what their identity is. There is nothing holy about turning someone away from a hospital. There's nothing holy about rejecting a child from a family. There's nothing holy about writing discrimination into the law. And I am tired of communities of faith being weaponized and being mischaracterized, because the only time religious freedom is invoked is in the name of bigotry and discrimination. I'm tired of it. My faith commands me to treat Mr. Minton as holy because he is sacred, because his life is sacred, because you are not to be denied anything that I am entitled to, that we are equal in the eyes of the law, and we are equal in my faith in the eyes of the world. And so I just have to get that out ahead of time, because it is deeply disturbing. Not just what is happening here, but what this administration is advancing is the idea that religion and faith is about exclusion. It is not up to us. It is not up to us to deny medical care. It is up to us to feed the hungry, to clothe the poor, to protect children, and to love all people as ourselves.
Wow.
I couldn't have said it any better, but I feel the need to double back just a little bit.
Go ahead.
There is, okay, you remember the movie Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom?
My favorite.
Oh, here's why I bring it up. People think archaeologists make things up. Because there are people who honestly believe dinosaurs are not real, and somebody from the art department put them together. When I was a child, I thought archaeologists were like Indiana Jones, because he would go on adventures to faraway places and he would discover artifacts. And every time he discovers a rare find from a faraway place, from an ancient civilization, he always says it belongs in a museum for everybody to enjoy and know about these people. Because you didn't know that the Peruvian people had a gold statue that looked like that until Indiana Jones got it and put it in a museum. Now, the ethics of how he got it, I admit, is questionable. And I know it's a Hollywood movie and it's very dramatic. But the idea of archaeologists bringing artifacts from afar to a museum so that people around the world could know, hey, these people are real. They do exist. It's not just in a book. Here's proof. Here's some of their artwork. Here's proof that these people are real. Here's their writing. Here's proof that these people are real. Here are photographs. Here is proof, physical evidence, because an archaeologist went there, picked it up, and brought it over. I admit the ethics of how they put these museums together are highly questionable, because all of them were not like Indiana Jones. Some of them did some dirty stuff to pry these artifacts from the indigenous people from around the world. But the fact remains, the museum is evidence of these physical things, these artifacts that show that, yes, these things are real and they're not made up. Nobody from the art department put this together. Their imagination is not that great. And even artists have to get inspirations from somewhere. It's real. You know, because, and I have to bring it up because we're living in an age of technology where you have stuff like the Oculus, artificial intelligence, alternate reality, and there are people who honestly spend too much time with their Oculus headset on, and they are now having an issue distinguishing between reality.
Right.
And so it's they're basically giving themselves a form of delusion by having a VR headset on just a little too long. So unplug sometime. We are beyond touch grass. Go to a museum, please, and look at things. Go see some artwork. I say the words Van Gogh, and people are like, "Is that a yogurt?" Robert Frost, is that a new hockey player? Ernest Hemingway, did he fly an airplane or something? The Zenith blimp. Oh, what was that?
Mark Twain.
Who's Mark Twain? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Why? You got what you got because of something that came before, and you don't know what came before, but you think you know what is now. It came from somewhere. Where? That's the question. Dr. Seuss is not a doctor, but they still call him a doctor and they love him dearly.
Yes.
That's great, but please understand he's still not a doctor. You should never take medical advice from Dr. Seuss.
Right. Otherwise, he'll say, "Well, just eat some green eggs and ham, and you're cured."
Oh, and as whimsical as it sounds, you have people who are doctors, but not in psychology. They're doctors in forestry, but they want to give you advice on something they're not a doctor in.
Right.
I'm trying to push credibility because there are a lot of people who have what's like a false sense of knowledge. They think they know. Okay, this is. I guess this is the point I'm trying to make. 5 minutes of searching on the internet does not compare to 5 years of study by somebody else.
Right.
5 years of study from any school, from any source, does not compare to a person who went to a credible institution of learning.
Right.
Because that credible institution of learning has a structure in place that keeps you from bringing in things that don't make sense. That's why it's called a curriculum. No, it's not always brainwashing in school system. Not all the time. It only becomes brainwashing if the teacher is teaching something that is actually harmful. And when I say harmful, I don't mean in my personal opinion as harmful. I mean within the realm of critical thinking and looking at plausible implications, plausible ramifications in the future based on what we see right now. You can predict what kind of things will happen in the future based upon the evidence you see right now. It's called a pattern. You saw it in the past. You see if this thing keeps happening over and over again in the past, you know that this is what's going to happen. And so it is today in education. If you leave out certain things simply because it makes you uncomfortable, you're doomed to repeat them again, which is what we're seeing right now with this nationalist movement, this Bible infused with politics. Remember what I said about the Salem witch trial? Theocracy? Bad. Did we learn? No. Are we going back to it? Yes. Yes, we are. Right before our very eyes. They are pushing for a theocracy, a form of theocracy. That's why there's such a push to put the Bible in the school system. But they're being intellectually dishonest because the Bible is thicker than 2 issues. So you hound the gay people, you hound abortion, but you ignore the pedophile. Okay. You ignore the pedophile, you ignore the child molester, you ignore the murderer, you ignore the rapist that caused the woman to have to get an abortion in the first place, that caused the child to have to get an abortion in the first place, that caused that child to want to be gay in the first place. You ignore those things, but you demonize those 2 things. When the abortion thing comes from being a victim, and the gay thing is also from being a victim. You're blaming the victim while ignoring the root of the problem. The Bible is very thick. To hone in on only 2 issues is extremely dishonest. It's a shame before God. He's like, God inspired all of these wonderful good things, and the only thing people focus on are the bad. They forget those scriptures where God reigns on the just as well as the unjust. They forget that part. God allows both parties to breathe air, whether they agree or not. People will say curse God and die, and they actually curse God and they still don't die. God is not petty. God is not like us. He's not petty like us, which is why we're still here. Be glad God is not petty. People thought God was being petty in the Old Testament when he flooded the earth. God was not being petty. He gave clear instructions then too. Did we listen? No, we didn't. So he flooded the earth. We got to a certain level and he had to flood the earth. And you know who survived? The people who were in the ark. Why? Why were they the only ones they survived? Because they actually did the thing that God said to do while the rest didn't. God is not petty. He gave clear instructions and they chose to ignore it. Like today, people focused on the abortion, but ignored the fact that she was raped, and that's how she got there in the first place. People focus on the gay thing, but people forget that that is a symptom of something else. But they don't deal with the root. They deal with the symptom still. Nobody's really getting to the root of the problem because they don't like the root of the problem. It makes them uncomfortable. That means you have to get up and do something and actually change. And people don't like to change. They're comfortable. So long as I can blame it on somebody else, I can wipe my mouth and pretend I did no sin. And then be shocked on Judgment Day when every sin comes right back up in your face.
That's true.
Where is the critical thinking? The Bible is not as bad as people think. They're just being dishonest. They never really read it. And when they read it with a closed mind on purpose.
Exactly.
They have no discipline. They're like children. Mommy said, no, you can't have candy. It will ruin your dinner. God said, no, you can't have that because it'll ruin your future. You did it anyway, and now you're complaining and blaming God and everybody else. When he gave us reasoning, we have the faculties of reason. We are above animals because we can reason. I work on a farm. I deal with animals a lot. Animals are not like people. A dog will eat her own puppies if they don't smell like hers. People are more reasonable. You don't have to smell like me for me to recognize that you're my baby. I can just look at you and know that you're my baby. That's what makes us better than animals. But for some reason, some weird twist of the brain gives us a false equivalence where we want to act like an animal when it's convenient and then a human when, wait, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean to hurt him. I'm not really like that. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Your habit where you constantly do that thing that hurts people makes it very clear that's who you are. No matter how many people try to tell this person who's always hurting others, they can't hear it. And when I say hurt others, I don't mean your feelings. It is a very dangerous thing to weaponize the Bible and discriminate against people based on how you feel. I feel they're ungodly, so I'm going to pull 1,000 scriptures to say that they're ungodly while ignoring my own sin.
Right.
Again, the Bible is thick. Why are you picking on gay people and folks that get abortions? It's very thick. There's a lot more to it. Like a lot more. And you conveniently skip that part and then wonder why they're still a mess. Or do they care? They just want to get their way, and so they just pick scriptures that allow them to get their way. I find that kind of very dishonest.
Exactly. I tell you, it's, as I stated, these folk are crazy. Some of these folk, anyway, they are crazy to sit up here and use God's word or even use the name of God for their, just to justify the things that they're doing or they have done in the past and probably going to do in the future. And who knows, some of them are presently doing it now in the name of God.
Got no discipline, got no self-control, got no discipline, and try to cover it with scripture.
None whatsoever. Well, sis, I really do thank you for being on this episode. And listen, look, this is not going to be the only episode. We're going to have to link up some more in future episodes. We got to. We got
Oh,
to.
oh, absolutely. This was fun. I hadn't done this in a minute. This is so much fun.
Yes, we have to link up. We have to link up. But it was good talking to you. And like I said, you just, hey, keep educating. Keep educating because this, we need it. This day and time, we need this type of education because I feel that, you know, some of us as African Americans or even white Americans, uh, they're not getting any of this. So hey, just keep educating the world. Please do that for me.
Oh, I I don't. Well, I can do the best I can. I'll try to be like that old commercial. Lycos, go get it. We're gonna find it. I'm at least point. If I don't know what it is, I'm at least point to where it is. If there's gold in those hills, I'm gonna let you know it's over there, and I'm gonna show you a little proof, best I can. If it ain't over there, I'm gonna tell you that too.
Right. All right, Abra. Thank you so much for being on the show tonight.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
So my final thoughts for tonight is this, and I decided to go a different direction with this because I need for Black Americans, white Americans, or whoever to understand something. This is in relation to the Super Bowl performance by Kendrick Lamar. Yes, I can tell you right now, I watched it, I enjoyed it. The reason why I enjoyed it because of the symbolism that he was giving us Americans. He was telling us what is going on, what has been going on, and how we need to fix it. All day, well, actually, last night on through today, I have seen nothing but numerous posts of people sitting up here arguing about they hated the show, they didn't like the show, it wasn't exciting, it wasn't this, it wasn't that, it was too political. It was listen, y'all, let me tell y'all something. And I'm going to say this as I'm just going to say it as plain as I can. We are not going to please everybody. We're just not. We're not going to please everybody. Listen, let me tell y'all something. When a person like Kendrick Lamar or whoever gives us the ways of how we can overcome what's going on in the world, take it. Please take it. Take it to heart because let me tell y'all right now, we are faced with a lot of stuff that could really hurt not only just the United States, but everybody around the world. Now, all this arguing and backbiting and all this and that is uncalled for. And everybody is entitled to their opinion about that show, Super Bowl show from last night. But me personally, I'm glad he did it. It should have been done because hey, we need to get this on out there. Because let me tell you something. While we were sitting up here, or like some of y'all sitting up here arguing back and forth about the show, guess what those billionaires were doing? Especially Mark Zuckerberg on Facebook. They was just laughing, chalking it up and everything. That's what they want. That is exactly what they want. So, with that being said, people, please, 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 when stuff like this is being broadcast on television, please take it to heart, because they're not doing this just for entertainment. They're doing this to bring awareness to what is being taken place, what is going on, and who is doing it. All right? Okay. So, with that being said, I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. Remember, we are here every Monday at 7 p.m. with a rebroadcast on Saturdays at 12 noon. Now, I'm kind of working with some things on the rebroadcast and stuff because I haven't actually posted the other video up there from last week. Contact information is right there. If you want to support this podcast, there's the Cash App right there. It's also down the marquee as you see it scrolling below. Now, join me on next week, because next week we're going to talk more, probably more about this, but then also we're going to talk more on Black history, something that we haven't done yet. I have done it in past shows, but I think next week will be a good time for us to talk about the history and how Black history was even founded. All right. All right, guys. Until then, y'all have a great night, and I will see you all on next Monday night, 7 o'clock, right here on the Evening Talk.